The internet has become a perfect place for traffickers to befriend children and other people looking for human interaction during a pandemic that prohibits just that. It's an opportunity to get coverage if you need it, or to make sure your existing coverage meets your needs for the year. The demand for both new and used cars are keeping vehicles rolling off the lot. Projects like this one behind me at River Prairie in Altoona find a way to continue despite the negative temperatures.
Out of nowhere, he took his life, and that is something that we're struggling to deal with and struggling to understand.
3 weeks ago, Dr. Josh Smith died by suicide. The veterinarian specialized in emergency and critical care. Smith also taught at the University of Wisconsin. For Smith's friends like Dr. Kai Shu, the 36-year-old was quirky, kind, and calm in extremely difficult situations.
A lot of veterinarians looked up to him. He provided specialty training. He spoke at national conferences. He was really a brilliant person. But he was also a really great person and that everyone liked.
Like many veterinarians, Smith carried the burden of student debt. The average vet school student owes more than $143,000 when they graduate. While student debt is not unique to veterinarians, their income is much different than their counterparts in human medicine. These financial burdens are one reason vets are at a higher risk for suicide. Dr. Meg Mueller with the Osseo Augusta Veterinary Clinic says another struggle for vets is compassion fatigue.
Most of us have come from a background of growing up wanting to be a veterinarian to help animals, and so the caveat and downside of that is that comes with a lot of emotions, and that comes with a lot of day-to-day stresses.
Mueller says those stresses can be anything from having to give a bad diagnosis or not being able to help an animal due to financial realities. During a visit to the UW-Milwaukee vaccine site, Governor Tony Evers signed into law Wisconsin Act 8. It allows dentists to administer certain vaccines like those for COVID-19. Wisconsin Dental Association President Paula Crum says dentists have the right qualifications to help with the vaccine rollout.
We certainly know how to give injections in a very difficult area of the body to give injections in the mouth. And so to go through a little bit of training and be able to provide an injection in the deltoid muscle of the arm, I think is very much within the scope of what we can do.
Before dentists can start vaccinating, they'll have to complete an 8-hour course. This training will go through storage, certain protocols, administration techniques, emergency procedures, and record keeping. Crum says allowing dentists to do this work will make the vaccine more accessible in rural communities. In places like Eau Claire, it's more about convenience.
We see people statistically on a more regular basis than the citizens see their physicians or other healthcare providers. I think it's just one more modality for people to be served and to be taken care of.
Chris Johnson has been a dentist in the Chippewa Valley since 1997. As the training becomes available, he'll be ready and willing to help the community beat the pandemic one shot at a time. A city block of cars and trucks wait to be sold. Even though the car buying process now includes masking up, Scott Moore with Eau Claire Auto Group says the pandemic hasn't significantly impacted auto sales.
Sales for us were pretty close to normal, probably down 5 to 10%. But considering everything that was going on, we're pretty darn happy with that.
Moore says throughout the year, car prices have been fairly consistent. One of the problems, however, has been getting inventory.
Without as many customers, there's not as many trade-ins. Without trade-ins, there's not as many used cars. So that's kind of had that ebb and flow a little bit. But then all of a sudden the market comes right back. So like I said, we've been very, very fortunate, very consistent. We have a super good customer base.
Over at Chilson Subaru in Eau Claire, car prices have stayed about the same. Overall, car sales have also rivaled previous years. One of the managers, Jean Chilson, says demand's been really strong since they reopened in April.
Everybody that was out really was buying. So I think that there was a lot of pent-up demand, and I also think a lot of people knew they weren't maybe going to take that normal vacation with flights and hotels and all of that. where they were taking more car trips or road trips or day trips.
Chilson says some of this demand also came from people who bought boats or campers during the pandemic and needed a vehicle that could pull it. JP Nunez is a 23-year-old who works as a manager for his family's restaurant in Eau Claire. His story begins back in September. After spending the day with family, Nunez didn't feel well.
I was like, well, I'm just going to get tested just in case, like just to be safe. So I go and get tested, and then sure enough, comes back positive.
Nunez was treating his symptoms at home until one morning he woke up and couldn't breathe. His girlfriend drove him to the emergency room. That's where he met Dr. Ali Zayed, a pulmonologist with the Mayo Clinic Health System in Eau Claire.
Some people stay in the hospital for a few days on low amount of oxygen, get treated with a medication that's been approved these days, and then leave the hospital. And some of them, like JP's case, where just things continue to progress very rapidly, very quickly.
5 days after being admitted to the hospital, Nunez was sent to the critical care unit. A few days later, he was on a ventilator. When his condition didn't improve, his doctor sent him to Mayo's Hospital in Rochester for more specialized care. Dr. Kyle Bowman and his team used a technology called ECMO to help Nunez recover.
ECMO is really the most intense form of support that we have to offer. It is reserved for those who are near death.
The ECMO machine does the work of your lungs and heart, allowing your blood to get oxygen while taking the pressure off your organs. After only a week on ECMO, Nunez was finally starting to recover. Looking back at this experience, Nunez has a new perspective.
You know, you never know when your last moment's going to be.
Nunez is thankful for the doctors, nurses, and medical team that helped him.